Jimmy, before I get to some of the specific comments, what was your overall take when you talked to coaches about Tennessee and they agreed to give you a little bit more info because their names weren't used? Because overall, I thought it was very positive.
Yeah, I did too. And I will say this, I started doing this for Lindy's maybe 15 years ago. I don't know if I was the first to do it, but I know that I started doing it. And I built up a relationship with some SEC coaches who would talk to me and talk to me freely if I didn't use their name. So that was in the context. I thought they're very positive about Tennessee. They liked Nico Iamaleava a lot. They think he's going to be a very good quarterback, very productive quarterback. The one thing that stood out to me was when one of the coaches said, I said, do you think defenses will catch up with Josh Heupel's offense? And he said, no. Basically, he said there are too many answers to what they do. They get too many mismatches against you. And as long as Josh Heupel's at Tennessee, defenses will not catch up with Tennessee's offense. I thought that was a really strong statement.
Caleb?
Yeah, and Jimmy, I wanted to add into that just kind of how much did they think that was about the system that Josh Heupel runs or just Josh Heupel's understanding of the system that he runs and an ability to adjust with it?
Yeah, I don't know how to – I would kind of lean toward number two on that one, his ability to adjust to it. I think there's a fine line. He runs a system that allows you a lot of adjustments. And and there's a lot of reading. Now, when you do that, your receivers and your quarterback have to be on the same page, or you could have some pick sixes. So that's a big part of this offense, and it's a timing offense as well. So you've got to. That's why it requires a whole lot of reps to be able to run it. And that's why when you get the right quarterback and the right receiver, and they're seeing the same thing, like Hendon Hooker did 2 years ago, you can average 46 points a game. And when you don't, you average less than 32 a game, like last year. So I think a lot of it is their ability to adjust off of what you do. And I think that's one of the things that makes this offense so difficult to defend.
One of the things specifically that I wanted to address that you kind of alluded to too, and I put a link to the story and the message board if you would like to read along, but you already alluded to it. One SEC coach said it's sustainable. This is a quote. Defenses have not totally caught up with it. Eventually, maybe, but not in Josh Heupel's career at Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Same quote, he runs the ball very effectively. It's just not throwing it all over the lot. They led the SEC in rushing in 2023. Right now, in this day and age, it's sustainable. How much of that do you think is the fact that the rules of college football, and that is offensive linemen having the ability to get further downfield than, say, in the NFL, helps the RPO and then helps Josh Heupel? I mean, to me, this is a long-winded question. I guess, Jimmy, this to me is not a trendy, neat, gimmicky offense. It's actually the best fit for what college is right now.
Yeah. I don't think it's a gimmick. When you think of a gimmick, you're thinking about trick plays. You're thinking about, okay, this isn't going to last very long. You only run it now and then. No, this is the offense that they run. And I think that, and one reason to me they're so successful in the run game is that you don't have to have great offensive linemen. You just have to have offensive linemen that can get a hat on a hat and sustain a block for a limited amount of time. Because what they do when they spread the field is they typically have a numbers advantage. They got 5 offensive linemen blocking 6 in the box, and then the running back should be good enough to make one guy miss. That's the premise of the run game. And they hit it up the middle really quickly to where if they break that containment, Jalen Wright may go 75 yards against Georgia. So that's what they do. They break a lot of long runs with that. But they have a numbers advantage in the run game because they spread the field. And a lot of people probably still don't realize Tennessee led the SEC in rushing last year. Now, I don't think they'll do that this year, but I think they will be up close to 190 yards a game. Last year, they averaged about 205. So I think they'll still run the ball effectively. which is kind of the secret sauce of this offense. And then, of course, with Nico there, I think he'll make a lot of the right decisions. He'll be accurate. And I think they will be up there around 40 points a game.
Jimmy, one of the things that really stood out to me that was interesting was one coach said that they're tough to practice for. Now, on the surface, that doesn't surprise me because I remember when Bruce Pearl came to Tennessee in basketball, and I remember one of the reasons that he was so successful so early was because the SEC, every team in the SEC ran a half-court motion offense and played man-to-man, and then on a random Wednesday night, you got to prepare for this chaotic up-tempo style. But the reason this one threw me off was while Heupel runs a much faster offense than most of the SEC, it's not like most of the SEC doesn't run tempo now, right? A lot of them are up-tempo, aren't they? So it's weird that they would throw a wrench in your plan preparing for them.
Yeah, a lot do run up tempo. Ole Miss runs up tempo. And so also to your point, Caleb, some of them run up tempo sporadically. It's not their entire offense like it is at Tennessee, like it is at Ole Miss. And I think the context of that comment was this is why Tennessee 2 years ago led the nation in scoring points in the first quarter. And while they were still pretty good at it last year, is that it's hard to prepare. And then once you start to get adjusted to it, you'll see the numbers on Tennessee's offense go down a little bit in the second quarter. And then it seems like they hit you again in the third quarter. But I think that was the point of it, is they come at you so fast, you don't typically practice against it. And I also throw this in there too. I think Tennessee does some pretty good game planning. So they're going to throw another wrinkle at you early, maybe a stacked alignment with the receivers, but they're going to throw something at you a little bit early that catches you off guard, which is another reason I think they're so productive in the first quarter.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you specifically about that because there's kind of a caveat that comes with that, and that's the second half. Jimmy's appearance brought to you by Ray Varner Ford in Clinton. Ray Varner Ford has incredible selection, best value you're going to find.
When the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Step up your game in this 24 Ford Maverick Hybrid, 25,515, 23 Ford Escape all-wheel drive, 30,995, 24 Ford F-250 Crew Cab 4x4 STX, 59,757. Local you trust, performance you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
Thank you, Ray. Jimmy, I'm curious because you brought this up just then, and that was that Josh Heupel is a very good game planner. The flip side of that is Alabama last year. Did you ask about in-game adjustments? Did you get any take on that? And what are your thoughts?
I did not ask about in-game adjustments. I did ask about pre-game adjustments or pre-game game planning, but I didn't get into the in-game adjustments. So I guess part of your question is how would you rate Tennessee with their in-game adjustments?
Right.
I think that they do better at the start of a game and the start of the second half. But I don't know that they do as good a job in the second and fourth quarters with their in-game adjustments. I think they go in with a plan and they catch you off guard a little bit. They catch you with their tempo. And I think as other teams adjust, it slows the offense down a little bit. Now, the stats might prove me wrong. I haven't looked that up. That's just an observation I've made. So I'll give them a really high marks for their entering the first or third quarter, but I don't know that they make as many adjustments in the second and fourth.
The other thing that you mentioned, it's really hard to practice against an up-tempo offense. This kind of reminds me of the old triple option. You say, oh, you never want to play Georgia Tech. But it is a different speed compared to almost every other offense in the nation.
It is. And Tennessee snaps it as quick as anybody in the country. Here's one way to counter that. Recruit defensive players like Georgia has, and that'll counter it. But if you're not, and Alabama's had some elite defenses. To me, though, if you are good or average on defense, you're going to have a hard time stopping or dealing with this Tennessee offense. But if you got great talent if you got a bunch of NFL guys on the defensive side of the ball and you're whipping Tennessee at the line of scrimmage, you can contain or stop this offense.
I completely agree with that.